lighting people, the Illuminating Engineering Society is arguably the most important organization that serves our beloved lighting industry. And like many of us, the IES has recently had to navigate some unexpected challenges brought on by the pandemic while simultaneously transitioning from an outgoing executive director to an interim director to the recently appointed leader, Colleen Harper. As a former executive director for the Audio Engineering Society, Ms. Harper is experienced at leading technical standards organizations. And we are pleased that she made time during her first 100 days as a lighting person to catch up with us and share more about the current state of affairs and her vision for the IES. Colleen, hello, and thank you for joining us today for 5 Big Questions.
Hi, Al. Thanks for being here. I'm really excited to talk to you and to be able to say some thoughts to the lighting community.
Well, we're so glad you're here, and it's good to have a highly qualified person that's permanently assigned to that executive director seat at the IES. So in fairness, you've been on board a little over 60 days so far. So as you look at your first 100-day plan, what do you see as your top priorities that you and the team would want to accomplish in your first 100 days there?
Well, I think one of the most important things for anyone who comes into an organization is to learn about the community and the industry. So I don't have a lighting background. And so one of the most critical things for me in my first 100 days, of which I have about 40 to go now, is to do a listening tour and to think and to hear from people, about what they view as IES's contributions to the industry, the importance of the organization and so forth, and learn about lighting in general, because that's not my background. So that's been very important for me to do so far, and I will continue to do that even beyond my first 100 days. We have Light Fair coming up, so to have some successful in-person events, now that we're going back to in-person, I would definitely like to look back and think of my first Light Fair as a big success. One of the things that's really important to IES and to the lighting industry is our standard setting. So I want to have a very deep understanding of the standards process and how to best support it as the executive director to make sure that it's an efficient and streamlined process, especially in light of some of the restructure that we went through last month. And then really just in light of that too, the operational efficiency. So we are now a leaner organization, and we want to be able to provide the products and services that our members and the industry is used to. So there's an opportunity here for us to strengthen our value proposition and our relevance in the industry as we work under our new normal.
Well, you hit a lot of priorities there, and it sounds like you have a real grasp of the main priorities for sure. And yes, with the restructuring to right size the organization was certainly some tough decisions that were made, but certainly what looks like some financially responsible decisions. And in that context, when you look at anyone who takes on a new job with any new organization, even with what was presumably a very long and detailed interview process that you may have gone through, sometimes we look at a new job opportunity and we start the job and realize that there were some pleasant surprises we didn't anticipate, or maybe some challenges that we underestimated or didn't see. In that context, is there anything there that after you started with the IES that you maybe were surprised by?
Yeah, absolutely. So most of them have been pleasant surprises. One of the things that has really stood out to me is how tied members are to the organization and how passionate they are about the society and how they truly see it as the center of the lighting industry. I think that's really incredible. I've also been pleasantly surprised to see how much opportunity there is. So we are looking into other collaborations with organizations, optimizing our standards department and development. And even though I come from a standard setting organization, it's been very interesting to see how critical IES is to the lighting industry. I mean, we're the lighting authority because of our standards and what they do for the industry. So have all been pleasant surprises. I will also say I attended the research symposium in April, and it opened my eyes really to this whole new future for lighting that I was not previously aware of as someone who was not a part of the community before. And so I think that's really exciting for IES and for the growth of our organization.
Yeah, and you mentioned live events, and the technical standards organization that you came from, the Audio Engineering Society, before the pandemic, it derived around 65% of its revenues from conventions and conferences, which, like the IES, deriving over half of its revenues prior to the pandemic from live events. Is that a good thing to have such a large portion of the pie chart attributed to live event revenue? And how does the IES better diversify its revenue streams?
Yeah, I would say that this is something that all associations struggle with. Most organizations rely on one or two revenue streams, and almost certainly one of those is an in-person event, if not multiple in-person events. And so it's not a good thing. There's a lot of risk associated with that. And as we've seen, especially when there's a global pandemic and you can't have in-person events, relying too much on any one revenue stream is a huge problem. But as I said earlier, I've been really amazed at how many opportunities there are. So what we're focused on is modernizing our business model. So we really see some opportunity relative to monetizing our intellectual property, creating subscription models, which is so common these days when you think of like Amazon Prime or Netflix or Hulu, like all of the things that you could have a subscription for. How does that factor into IES? Because it's such a common business model now. And we're really trying to identify opportunities for more inclusion and accessibility, especially when you think of global participation or the global lighting community.
You know, that's true. The IESNA, the North America portion of it, has been minimized over the years because the breadth of the organization is certainly stretched into other continents, and all those other things you mentioned are fantastic to hear, especially with the subscription model and those other things. So when you come in from an organization that's not lighting, sometimes we're always in our own lighting industry echo chamber saying the same things, and it's refreshing when someone who's smart and experienced in other areas can come in and bring some fresh ideas. Have you seen some of that echo chamber discussion in the lighting industry, and is there anything you can identify that might cause you to wonder if it's the best way or the real way that we should be doing things, or perhaps something you want to investigate further because you don't want to just accept it at face value?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so I am only 2 months into my tenure here. So I just kind of want to preface my comments with that. I'm still learning about some of the norms and paradigms that exist within the lighting industry specifically. But I would say, broadly speaking, associations tend to rely on certain demographics, especially when you go back historically. So whether that's discipline related or geographically related, tend to rely more on one type of demographic. So as we have new lighting professionals come into the industry, I think we have a huge opportunity there to try to get the younger generation involved. And that will likely require different ways of learning, capitalizing potentially on the virtual opportunities that now exist largely because of COVID. So that's a huge silver lining. But going back to the research symposium again, that really showed me that this industry is quite interdisciplinary and perhaps more diverse than the IES of the past. So something that I'm really interested in is figuring out how to integrate those individuals into IES, whether it's just, as members or speakers or just customers, whatever the case may be. I think like the people who are involved in machine learning, AR and VR, data analysis and management, like all of those very forward-looking things are going to be critical to the lighting industry as we move forward. So I would very much like to try to figure out a way to integrate them and have them be a part of IES. Beyond that, I'm still learning, but that stood out to me, very early on.
Really interesting comments, because part of I run a small media company, but part of the IES is the media of LDNA, the leading magazine for our industry, and reaching the younger crowd in different ways is an important part, not just through your LDNA arm, but in general. And the other things about AR and VR, that's wrapping into lighting software and how people are experiencing lighting simulations and things like that. So love the forward thinking on that, and I look forward to seeing how those concepts develop in the years ahead. And speaking of the years ahead, you have a little bit of ground underneath you now, and we talked about your first 100 days, which is kind of a short-term vision. What's your longer-term vision or medium-term vision, next 3 to 5 years for the organization?
So I think it's safe to say that I envision IES growing. So in many different ways, growing in all senses of the word, including in diversity. So all senses of that word too. So we're talking about age, race, geographic location, socioeconomic status, all of those things I think are really important for IES to grow, both from a numbers standpoint, membership numbers, but also revenue. Of course, having consistently successful light fairs, which would be a very nice thing 3 to 5 years from now as we rebound after COVID and get back to in-person events. I think that they say the typical timeline to rebound after something like this is about 3 to 5 years. So to have Light Fair be back and really strong, and of course be working towards that, but before 5 years from now, but have that be back to normal or even larger, diversified revenue will be critical. So I hope to have some very reliable revenue streams that are outside of events, or especially in-person events. I very much anticipate and expect us to have a standards program and process that is just as efficient and streamlined as it is now, if not more so in the future, to have that be something that is still strategically prioritized at the organization, because it is so important that we provide that to the industry. And then again, I think we have to focus on new ways of getting people involved. So especially when it comes to the next generation of lighting professionals, how do we meet them where they are? How do we engage them? How do we gear our programming towards them and our resources? So you think about something like the lighting library. What else can we do with that to make that really appealing to people, not just the younger generation, but people in general? And so we have a lot of resources that already exist. And so it's figuring out how can we have those, how can those be future-proofed? How can we make sure that they remain valuable to people as we move forward and technology changes so quickly? So really a very future-focused society in 3 to 5 years, starting now, but definitely in 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, no, those sound like some worthy goals to pursue, and well thought out as well. So Colleen, I'm real excited to hear your vision and to get to know you a little bit and what your strategic thoughts are on the organization and the industry. So, hey, you're 60 days in, and hopefully you're in it for the long run. Speaking on behalf of the people who will be at Light Fair, we hope to cross paths with you at the Las Vegas Convention Center next month at Light Fair 2022. And thank you for joining us today for 5 Big Questions.
Thank you so much, Al. This was such a pleasure and an honor for me to be invited to do this. And I look forward to seeing you and others at Light Fair next month.
Hey there, we really enjoyed that discussion. We hope that you did as well. Be sure to click that big LED logo next to me. And what that'll do is subscribe you to our YouTube channel so you don't miss the next 5 Big Questions interview. And YouTube subscribers always receive an early preview to the next interview before we even post it on the Inside Lighting website. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.